So today I wanted to talk about marriage and being a good wife, but I wanted to say at first that I am by no means a pro when it comes to marriage at all. I have so many things that I am learning and trying to grow in and trying to improve on that are just not natural to me. And just to give you an example, even the other day I was working out in the garden and I was having kind of a self-righteous, prideful moment thinking about what a good wife I am and how I have it all figured out and all this stuff. And then my husband and I were visiting that evening and we really liked talking about like, hey, how can I love you better? How can I serve you better? How can I show that I appreciate you more? And so we're having one of these great conversations and let's just say I went away realizing how many things I have that I could improve on and work on and get better at. So I tell that story to say, take everything I'm saying today with a grain of salt. I've only been married for about 3 years. But these are things that have really improved my marriage and have really improved my mindset and my desire to be a good wife. And I am extremely passionate about marriage. It is one of my favorite topics to learn about and to research and to talk about and just to grow in. And so I do want to talk about this. I do want to share some things that have really benefited myself and my husband in our marriage. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is actually expectations. And the reason for this is because going into marriage, my husband and I heard constantly, like, don't have expectations, don't expect anything, don't have expectations. While I agree that it's probably a good thing to remove those expectations of your husband or of your marriage, I really think having expectations for yourself is actually a really good thing. In fact, I believe it's in Proverbs where it talks about how without a plan, people perish. And so I think this is just a perfect example. Without a goal in mind for my marriage is not going to be what I want it to be. And so I am so grateful that while I was single, when I was engaged, once I got married, I had these expectations and kind of these big goals for the type of wife I wanted to be. And so when I get bogged down with emotion and work and life and busyness and just the chaoticness of everyday life that it sometimes can have, I can constantly be going back to these things and being reminded, no, this is who I want to become. I don't care that I might be tired in this moment or that Carrie is screaming and crying or that I'm stressed out about something. Long term, this is someone I want to continue to grow in and to become like. So for myself, I have 2 different things I go to with these expectations, how I develop these expectations that have really, really benefited myself in our marriage. Number 1 is that I have exact scenarios I made up back when I was single. I remember laying in bed at night thinking like, how do I want to be as a wife? And so I came up with these exact scenarios that I think of to this day all the time to remind myself of and kind of structure my life and my journey in becoming a wife to these things. And so just to give an example, one of them was like, you know what, when my husband's tired and he comes home from a long day of work and he's stressed and his muscles are sore, I want to be the type of wife that sometimes has like a hot bath for him and has made him tea or has orange juice and has soothing music on for him. Like, that's the type of wife I want to be. I want to be a servant-hearted wife. Another thing is that I wanted to be a playful wife. I wanted to be a wife who was kind of a go for it, you know, learn to dirt bike, learn to do what he likes to do. Now, that's one I could probably work on. But I just had these exact pictures in my mind that were super tangible that I could do no matter if we're having a, you know, on cloud 9 marriage day or if we're kind of down and frustrated or irritated at each other. These are practical things I can go to that I do go to quite often that really keep my mindset straight on who this is that I want to grow more into and become. Number 2 that kind of follows this idea of expectations as well is that I remember actually when my siblings and I were really young, we had these audio stories that these people would read in these really cool English accents. And there was this whole series we went through together that was about all these different kings in Europe. There was this king who had this wife and she died somewhat early, and the thing he said about her, he said, my wife was the best wife a man could have ever asked for. And amongst all the excitement and all the fights and all the castles being burned up and all this crazy stuff, that is the one thing I remember that stood out to me in these stories. And I remember thinking, that is what I want to aspire to be like. At the end of my life, I want my husband to be able to say of me, she was the very best helpmate, she was the very best soulmate, she was the very best friend I've ever had. And so that's the first topic I want to talk about. The second kind of ties into finding practical ways that you can be intentional in your marriage. And I may have shared this in the one other marriage video that I've done in the past, but these things have been so beneficial to me and have been so beneficial to our marriage. And so I wanted to share them with you real quick. The first one is that I not only want to fulfill my husband's needs as far as feeling loved and appreciated and respected, but I also want to be the type of wife that prays for his spiritual life just as much as I tend to his physical life. And so one of the ways that I try to do this, that I started this last year, that I'm so glad that I started, is that I give him a back massage while I'm praying for him every night that he's here. And this has been such a good habit that I'm so glad I developed this last year, because not only do I feel like I'm praying for his spiritual life, I'm praying that he'll grow in the Lord, I'm praying that the Lord will continue to use him, that the Lord will put his skills to good use, all of these type of things, but I'm also fulfilling his love language, that is physical touch. And so I feel like I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone, and it always reminds me, the back massage reminds me to pray for him, or the praying for him reminds me to do the back massage. And sometimes this is 1 minute, sometimes this is 10 minutes, but this has just been such a good habit. I'm so glad that I've gotten into, and he's thanked me before that I'm praying for him and that I'm giving him a back massage. So I've thought about it. I'm really blessed in the way that my husband, his two love language are acts of service and physical touch, and those are really easy in comparison to like gifts. I think of gifts as being such a hard one. And so I don't know exactly if your spouse isn't these love languages, what you could do, but maybe you can make him a cup of coffee every day if he's acts of service, and pray for him as you're making that cup of coffee. Or maybe if he's a gift person, you could order him a gift on Amazon and pray for him while you're ordering it. I don't know. You'll have to be a little bit creative, more creative than I am apparently. But I do think it's just so neat being able to serve your spouse in both those areas at one time. Another thing, and I may have mentioned this in the last video as well, but it's been a while. So this idea is that rather than feeling all stressed when your husband gets home from work, knowing that you have to have the house clean, dinner made, yourself looking perfect, your kids being quiet, all of those stressful things that as a mom and as you have more kids, I'm sure it just gets harder and harder to accomplish. I just asked my husband, hey, what is the number one or number two things that I can focus on before you get home to make your home life more enjoyable? And so just having one or two exact things that you can ask your spouse, how can I make your home life more enjoyable when you get off of work? And then focusing on those when you're so busy, it's just benefited our home life. Knowing the target so I know how to hit it. I personally don't appreciate a lot of the content that's out there concerning marriage that's almost like justifying you in every situation to kind of be the victim. That is not what I want to do. That is not the type of person I want to become. I want to take responsibility for my marriage, take responsibility for myself and for my actions, and do everything I can to build our marriage and to build the type of relationship that I really think we all want, rather than justifying us to stay where we are. So that's kind of my intent with this video. I hope it encouraged you. Have a great week. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe. I'll drop some of the links to my other videos in the description box below, and I'll see you next week. Bye.